candidates and hear what they have to say. I commend you, so thank you very much for being here. I think I'd be remiss today, of all days, if I didn't take a moment and remember 9/11 I was listening to some of the stuff before I came over today, and you know, it's so touching and everything like that, and I thought there's one way that we should start today. And if you remember the plane that crashed out in Pennsylvania, if you remember what they said before they headed to that cabin, they said, "Let's roll." And so with this, we're going to say, "Let's roll, let's get going." Okay? So thank you for being here. Okay, I'm Tom Johnson with Stu News. It's an honor always to do things like this. I love to get involved in the community. I love to get involved with all of these people. I think it takes a special person, not necessarily a smart person, but a special person to throw themselves into the community to run for our offices. They open up themselves to a lot, and you know, they all have lives outside of City Hall, and so to all of you, I commend you for taking the step to be here today. So thank you very much. This is the part that is always a difficult part, because they say, "Okay, let's introduce any dignitaries." So I look out here and I'm thinking like, "Oh, there aren't any." And then I see somebody like Keith Curry, I go, "Oh, I guess there's one," and you find another. So anyway, I'm gonna give you who I've figured out. I haven't run into everybody. Some people have told me that somebody's here. So I'm gonna run through some of these, and if I miss somebody, you can yell at me later. Former City Council person Jeff Herdman is here. In no particular order. From our library board, the chair, Paul Watkins, is here. From Area 3 of our Newport Beach City Unified School District, Carol Crane. Former multi-time mayor, Keith Curry. School board member, I'm told Karen Yelsey is here. School board candidate, Lisa Pearson is here. And then there's a group of people that have been instrumental in organizing this today that I want to go through and introduce the committee behind this. Again, in no particular order, although Charles would say he's the most important. Charles Klob, Nancy Skinner, Nancy Scarborough, Suzanne Gottlieb, Sue Dvorak, and Laura Koopman. So, if I missed anybody again, I apologize, but they paid me and you didn't. So, okay. We are going to start today. We have, I'm going to go through and give you the rules and regs for today's format, and then we'll get right into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through multiple parts of today. First of all, I'm going to ask you to give an opening comment that will be 2 minutes. It'll be an opening statement on why you should be voted on to be City Council. Then we're going to go through the second part after that, and we're going to raise your paddles on a yes or no. And then we're going to move from there. We're going to go through questions. And the first set of questions will be, they're going to be, we determined they need a little bigger answer, so we're going to allot 90 whole seconds to that. And then we'll go through 1-minute responses. And then finally, we're going to have a lightning round, which is just going to be quick responses and one-word answers. Now, I know talking to somebody in politics about a one-word answer is saying, okay, we'll limit it to 2.5 minutes, but it's going to be one-word answers or one-word or just a short statement. And then we'll come back and we'll have closing statements where each candidate will have 1 minute to close up and wrap anything up that they had to say. So anyway, trying to think of what else. Let's see, do we need to go through the rules and regulations? Let's see, on things that you all got to note on dress code, except for Keith Curry. And let's see, what else do we have? I want to thank a couple of groups that have put this on. First up is Next Up Newport, is a nonpartisan grassroots group of Newport Beach residents who want to bring positive change to our city's government by electing people to city council and the school board who reflect our community's values, transparency, inclusivity, integrity, fiscal discipline, and good governance. And then we have SPON, Stop Polluting Our Newport, 501c3 nonprofit public education organization working to protect and preserve our residential environmental qualities of Newport Beach. And then let's see, I've given you the guidelines for each of the questions and answers. I'll go through that again. I want to introduce Dennis Baker from SPON, who's going to be our timekeeper. So when the big hand gets on top, Dennis, we're good with that. And let's see, when the timekeeper will begin the timer, when the candidate begins speaking, the timekeeper will hold up, I can say Dennis, will hold up a yellow card indicating 15 seconds are remaining. And then once the time period has elapsed, you will hear a bell. We would encourage you to finish the thought as long as there's only a couple more words. Finishing a thought does not allow you to continue another 30 seconds. And then let's see again at the end, if you missed something and you want to come back to something, you can do that in your closing. We ask everybody to act in a civil manner to each other. Please do not interrupt each other's responses. I would appreciate it if the audience refrained from clapping or cheering, unless it's something I said. And I want to remind you all that this is a nonpartisan event, and that this forum is a neutral space for sharing philosophies, ideas, and information. And just because somebody may or may not agree with you does not mean that they shouldn't say what they have to say. So I'm going to encourage you all to dig down and say what's on your mind, and let's get this thing going. Okay, so first of all, we are going to start with opening statements, and I will be going from district to district to start things, and I will try to rotate on candidates so the same people are not always first and leading us off, but leading us off from district. Let's see, let me introduce the candidates, why not? Far end, we have District 1. We have Tom Miller. We have the part about no cheering. I guess you're cheering because I said it. Okay. Joe Stapleton. See, Joe didn't listen to me. Sorry. Jim Mosier from District 3. Amy Peters, District 3. Eric Wygan, District 3. And then District 6, we have Troy Brenner. And we have Lauren Kleinman. And we also have for District 4, we have Robin Grant. Here's what I'm going to do. Before going into the first question, I'm actually going to go to Robin. Robin has been gracious enough to allow the other candidates, she's running unopposed, and we have to vote for her. We're going to hear from Robin. She's going to give us some comments and everything. Then she's going to step out of the way and allow more time for the candidates that have opposition to be able to get their message across. So Robin, why don't you take it away to start? There's a mic in front of you.
Hello. Okay. Good evening. As Tom mentioned, and thank you, Tom, for that wonderful introduction. I'm Robin Grant, and I am very honored to be running unopposed for Newport Beach City Council in District 4. I just want to take a quick minute right now to take a moment to think about the firefighters in our community. We had a very devastating fire today down on the coast, and I was actually with Fire Chief Boyles at an event, and to just see the immediate response and to know that our firefighters are out there today really is very poignant, and I do cherish that we have such a wonderful city and such a great response team, and I'm hoping the best for the people who were affected by the fire, so keep them in your thoughts. Leading starts with listening. I will listen and be an independent voice on the Newport Beach City Council. My #1 commitment is to be accountable to the residents. A bit about my background. I've called Newport Beach home for over 35 years. I'm an attorney, a business owner, and I teach college classes. I launched my campaign over a year ago and have met with hundreds of residents and citizen groups, including members of Next Up Newport and SPON early in 2021. Your mission of civic engagement is crucial for good local government, which impacts our lives more than any other on a daily basis. It's vitally important, the number of police and firefighters that we have to protect us, how our streets are signalized, what books are in our libraries, and where and what real estate development occurs in our community. I've worked behind the scenes to improve our city, serving 5 council appointments representing first responders, local business, and community education. Ours is an exceptional city with a rich history dating back to 1906. We've grown tremendously over the years, home to a world-class harbor, famous beaches, and wonderful residential villages. Great cities don't just happen, they're built with a legacy of leadership, and I will continue that legacy. We have critical issues that take time to resolve. There aren't easy answers, but I promise you, I will be the hardest worker on the City Council to help find answers. Thank you for your vote, and I appreciate looking forward to representing you on the Newport Beach City Council.
Okay, so let me introduce our opening candidate, and I'm going to go down to District 1, and I'm going to start with Tom Miller for your opening statement.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this. My campaign consists of 4 parts. It's faith, family, experience, and the people. I'm a blessed man beyond what I ever deserved. I was born into a very poor family who had a lot of love, but very little money. I pursued my American dream, drove to California in 1980 as a 17-year-old high school graduate. I thought California was a land of opportunity. And I stayed faithful through that journey, regardless of the hurdles that I faced. Family.
Yeah.
Hear me? Yeah. All right. Family. I am blessed with the nicest human being I've ever met. She's been with me, she's dealt with me for 38 years. My amazing wife, Eileen, here, please, I have to acknowledge you. We have 4 amazing kids, 4 incredible grandkids. We're together 38 years, and she is really the foundation of my life and has allowed me to pursue the successful career that I've had for the 60 years on this playground we call Earth that I've been here. And I want to state real quick before I forget, I'm asking for, my birthday is on the day of the election, November 8th. I'm asking for 1 birthday present. Your vote. Right. So experience is really important. I started the company in 1985. I was employee #1. I grew it to over 850 employees. I created the largest automotive reconditioning company in the United States. Through hard work, perseverance, and enormous amount of faith, the experience, the knowledge, the leadership, the skill set that I learned in the 36 years I had at that company is truly what I think equips me to represent you on City Council. The people. I'm doing this for the people. There's nothing more important than the people. I'm not a politician, I'm a public servant, and I'm here to serve you. And I'm here as my #1 on my platform is to preserve and protect our quality of life here in Newport Beach. Thank you so much.
I spoke to Chief Wells on the way over here, and the firefighters that did end up at Hoag Hospital were dehydrated, so I think we'd all think thoughts and prayers for those guys. I want to thank Tom Johnson, SPON, and Next Up Newport for having us here. I am Joe Stapleton. I'm running for District 1 City Council. I was born here in Orange County, and I was raised in Arizona. I moved back here to Newport Beach 16 years ago. I'm running to preserve the legacy of Newport Beach. After moving here, I almost immediately joined the Chamber of Commerce when I was 24 years old. And by the time I was 29, I was the chairman of the board. Like many of you, I'm a business owner. I'm the president and co-founder of Spinnaker Investment Group. It's a wealth management firm. We're managing just over $500 million today. I served on the Harbor Commission for 4 years. I was then appointed to the Finance Committee where I've been serving for the last 6 years. And for me, as the president and co-founder and the chair of the board of Newport Beach Foundation, all about preserving the legacy and getting the next generation engaged in community service. In 2020, I was fortunate enough to be named the Citizen of the Year, and I share this with you because experience matters, and especially in an election like this. I've always prided myself on being an independent thought leader and always doing what's in the best interest of my fellow residents. So for me, my main focus, reducing homelessness. Second is really strengthening our public safety. And lastly, protecting Newport Beach above all else. What do I mean by that? I mean preserving our open spaces, our parks, our beaches, our harbor, having well-maintained and well-manicured streets, fiscal responsibility, investing in infrastructure without ever raising taxes, and lastly, pushing back on Sacramento policies. I'm not running on a platform of rebuilding Newport Beach. I'm running on a platform maintaining and improving that quality of life that we've all become accustomed to. So this afternoon, I'm going to ask for your vote to help me and help us keep Newport Newport. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now let's move over to District 3, Jim Mosher.
Thank you, Tom. My name is Jim Mosher, and I'm running for the council because I believe I can perform one of the essential functions of a city council person better than anyone else up here. And that role is to ensure that the professional staff who runs our city is running it for the benefit of we the people, the residents who hire them. And while I hope to do well here today, I want to emphasize that the skill set that you will see demonstrated here are quite different from those needed on the city council job. In fact, it's almost the opposite of the slow, deliberative way that municipal decision-making is supposed to take place. With 7 elected representatives acting only collectively, not as individuals, and only on questions that are announced not at a forum, but on an agenda that they have seen at least 5 days before the meeting. When that deliberation is not done as intended, we see things like people having to pay now for trash collection that was supposed to be free. We see buildings approved on land that we, the people, designated for other uses. And we see decisions that are arrived at by shadowy working groups meeting out of the public eye. I know this because for 13 years I've read the agendas and I have pointed out flaws in the staff recommendations that our elected council members all too often seemed either not to be aware of or felt powerless to correct. You can learn more about me and about this at my website, jimmosher.com. And in conclusion, if you want image or charisma, look elsewhere. If you seek a skilled salesperson, look elsewhere. But if you think a council deliberation needs a cautioning hand, vote for me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Peters. I'm running for District 3. My birthday is not on November 8th, but I delivered a baby on November 8th, 19 years ago, so if you could give my son a present and vote for me. Speaking of 9/11, this day has always meant a lot to me because I woke up that morning and I was pregnant with my second child, and I thought, what in the world am I doing? What world am I bringing this child into? And that really brought home to my husband, Andy, and I, my husband of 25 years, who's here today, how we needed to participate in our local communities. If we want a community of love and support and helping your fellow man, then we need to participate. So since that day, we've been involved in everything in our community. We started our business here in Newport Beach. I went to local schools. My husband was born in Whittier, so he didn't, but all 3 of my children went to all of our local public schools, which were fantastic, and they all graduated as valedictorians from Newport Harbor High School. So we are very vested in our communities and our schools, and we have really understood how important it is to preserve our way of life. Jim and I both live really near the Back Bay, and in the shutdown, I can't tell you how many of my neighbors I saw on that Back Bay Trail, and if we hadn't protected that land, there would be condominiums there. So it's really important that we protect the open spaces we have left in Newport Beach, and I think most of us agree about supporting our fire and police. Public safety is #1, and I feel like we need to support all of our police, especially in the climate we have today. And my husband and I drove by that 4-alarm fire at Promontory Point today, and we were so grateful to see all of our first responders there supporting our neighbors. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Eric Whitehan.
Hi there, thank you for having me, SPON, and next up, Newport. It's funny, as my wife got a call today and said, "Are you going to go to the nun event?" And she's like, "Wait, the nun event?" I don't know what that was, but I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the group putting it together, both groups. I get the honor of getting to be born and raised in Newport Beach, and I also get the honor to raise my family in the exact same neighborhood of Dover Shores where I grew up. They get to go to Mariners as me, they get to go to Ensign as me, and they get to go to Newport Harbor as me. So I'm invested in my community, and I'm invested in seeing that what they get is the exact same thing that I got. So I'm honored to be running for City Council to give back in that way. Experience, everyone's kind of talking about, but I'm lucky to have spent the last 20 plus years in government and understanding the different roles of legislative government. I have friends and have had the opportunity to work for members of Congress and the state legislature. I currently represent a state senator right now down in South Orange County. Her name is Pat Page. She's running for county supervisor. And I've had experience working at the County Board of Supervisors. And of the 34 Orange County cities, there probably isn't a city where I don't know a member of the City Council, if not more. So I have experience that I can bring to the table. And I think that a lot of these issues that we're discussing here today are regional issues. They're not specific to Newport Beach, but specific to regional. So I think that my experience, I can bring in those regional qualities and help deliver results for Newport Beach. I've had the last 7 years, I've been able to serve on our city's planning commission. And as Robin discussed, where Robin is now, she talked about listening. And as a planning commissioner, I feel that I've done a lot of that by meeting with both sides of an applicant. You have the applicant, and then you have those who are maybe opposing or supporting. And I've had an opportunity to meet with both sides to come to my decisions that I've made on the Planning Commission for the best interests of the city of Newport Beach. So I look forward to sharing some of these visions and discussions when we talk about all these questions.
Thank you, Eric. Now from District 6, we have Joy Brenner.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Joy Brenner, and I have the distinction of being the only incumbent that is running for office. I, 4 years ago, talked to a lot of you about my experience then. I've lived here for 60 years. I've raised my daughters here. They went to local schools. My grandchildren are now here, and this is our hometown. My only concern is how do we protect it? And from what I've seen over the last 4 years, it's vital that we have community-oriented citizens on our city council. Not people who see it as an avenue to further their own careers, to build their pocketbooks, to build to a higher office. If that happens because someone has served with distinction and they do want to go into higher office, then that's wonderful. But the intention is what's important. The intention is that they serve on our city council to solve our problems. Now, I happen to think that we have so much to be grateful for living in Newport Beach, and I sometimes think when people come down and complain to us that maybe we're not quite grateful enough. But we also have problems to solve, and it was different when I was growing up here, and it really did seem like it was Leave It to Beaverland. It was just delightful, and we felt very safe. I don't think we feel safe the way we used to feel safe. So it's very important that we figure out why not and what we can do about it. And it's also important to understand that so many of the solutions that we're looking for are at higher levels than they are at our city council. You think you're going to get elected to city council and solve all these problems, and it's very frustrating when you get there and people keep telling you no. But it's really important that we have a good city council, that all are on the same page in protecting our quality of life in Newport Beach. That is the most important thing. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Well, like Joy, I too was asked 5 years ago if I would run against Scott Piotr and run for council. At that time, I was entrenched in the work I was doing with the community groups on the airport and getting settled into my role on Planning Commission. My son was only 5 and we were pretty inseparable. Now he's older and all about Coach Daddy, anything with a ball or engine. So my biggest jobs are to feed and clothe him and try to get him to put the toilet seat down. Over the last 2 years, frustrated by issues like homelessness and beach closures, neighbors and many of my parent peers have been urging me to run. And while it would be so much easier for me to sit back and enjoy the life that my husband and I have built for our family, that's just not how I'm wired, and we simply have too much to lose here in Newport. This council election isn't about things in the past. It's not about Measure B or who will be the next mayor. It's not about voting blocks or teams that don't exist anymore. This isn't even about our beloved Grandma Joy, as she's so affectionately referred to by many of you in this room. This race is about giving voters choice on who they believe will put forth the best policies in line with Newport Beach values and who can be the most effective in their representation of District 6. While many of you may not agree with decisions made on Planning Commission, no one can argue that I have shied away from voicing my opposition or being a dissenting opinion for many things that have come before us, including the expansion of Mariners Mile or conversion of a service station to a Quickie Mart with late-night alcohol sales. I have demonstrated strong leadership in every aspect of my commitment to this community, starting with the initiative and diligence it took to take all the airlines and get them to the table to be better neighbors to our city, and leading right up to my own backyard, where as the vice president of my homeowners association, I dedicated hours of my time researching best practices and meeting with our police department to implement proactive security measures for our neighborhood. I've worked closely with community groups and stakeholders and earned the unanimous support of City Council for a second term on Planning Commission, as well as from my peers to serve as the first woman chair in 27 years.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into yes or no questions. And you each have 2 cards in front of you. One says yes and one says no. If you're confused by that, the green one is yes and the red one is no, okay? So, I'm going to ask you the question, and I just want you to hold it out in front and hold it where it can be seen. Don't just flip it up and then flip it down. Hold it out there so we can understand where you are on this issue. The first question is, if it is possible for the city to regulate electric bikes beyond what the state requires, would you favor doing so? You're not going to answer?
I'm going to go ahead and echo what Mr. Mosier said. I'm happy to answer questions where I can explain my...
Okay, well, I think people want. Jim's still holding up the card, so I'm going to ask you to hold up the card on these. Come on. Yeah, that's part of the process. Come on.
Hold up the card.
Okay. Next one. Next question. Do you support a citizen committee to review the vision plan for the Mariners Mile development? Okay, we good there? Next one. Do you support more regulation for fractional home ownership in Newport Beach? Okay, next question. I'm gonna read this question and I'm gonna qualify it. Did you vote yes or no for Measure B? And I want you to show me which way you voted, not just answer the question. Did you vote yes or did you vote no on Measure B?
Do it, Joe. There you are.
Okay, thank you. This is going to be this is going to be the hardest one. Have you ever participated in the beer can races? Have you ever gone out to beer can race? Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to go into 90-second responses. And we're going to go through the candidates. We're going to ask each of them, we're going to ask a question, and then we're going to rotate through and get their answers. We'll each have 90 seconds. The first one has to do with RENA, the state-mandated housing element. One of the sections of the Newport Beach General Plan Vision Statement reads, quote, "We have a conservative growth strategy that emphasizes residents' quality of life. A strategy that balances the need of various constituencies and that cherishes and nurtures our estuaries, harbor, beaches, open spaces, and natural resources. Per that state-mandated regional housing needs assessment, or needs allocation, RENA, the City of Newport Beach must plan for 4,845 affordable dwelling units in order to meet the housing element requirements. How would you change the general plan vision statement to align with the RENA requirements?" I'm going to start with, over at number 1, I'm going to start with Joe Stapleton.
Okay, I mean, as the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, this is one of the few times where I'm on the same side of SPON. There is no doubt that the threat to quality of life in a city like Newport Beach is going to continue to be direction from Sacramento on what we do here in the city. I support continuing to push back on Sacramento policies that threaten our quality of life. I will do all I can if I'm elected to help maintain what we've all become accustomed here in Newport Beach. 4,800 units being built in a city like this that we did not ask for is not a good thing. When you talk about infrastructure, you talk about water, you talk about electricity, where are we going to build these homes? We can continue to fight back, and I'm going to do all I can to protect green light. But the reality is that we're going to go as residents, we're going to be faced with the vote, and we're all going to say, no, we don't want more building. We're going to go to the state, and they're going to say, tough, you got to build. So maybe we're going to have to sue ourselves to find a resolution for that. I live on West Newport, I work in the airport area, and I know that's where a lot of the housing is going to go. I've been in the airport area for over a decade. There are no retails, there are no services for residents, so I'm not entirely sure. And traffic in the afternoon and evening is horrible. So I'm very concerned making sure that we focus on infrastructure and putting in the retail spaces we need in a district like the airport area.
Tom Miller.
What most people don't realize about this RENA element is that there's an affordable housing part of it. And this 4,850 units could very likely turn into 9,000 units if we don't hit the percentage of affordable housing. I sat down with the city staff and asked why we aren't pushing back. And the comment I got was because we jeopardize and risk our charter status as a city. But there's multiple cities throughout California that are filing lawsuits and pushing back against this number. And to Joe's point, I think we need to do the same. But what's most important on my platform when it comes to affordable housing and the RENA number is that we are capable of carving a percentage of the affordable housing out to the people that can't afford to live here, that deserve to live here. Our police, fire, lifeguards, our hotel workers and restaurant workers. There's not a police officer in our city that lives in our community, and I have a problem with that. I sat down with a couple of attorneys, they said legally this could happen. And I would push hard for that. We recently had our RENA number approved by the state. That's stage 1. Second 2 is implementation. To expect us to build these units by 2029 is going to be a challenge. I'm up for the challenge. I'm up to provide affordable housing for the people that deserve it in our community.
Thank you. Let's move over to District 3, and I'll call on Amy Peters.
Thank you, Jim. I agree with Tom. I feel like we have all been a victim of Sacramento policies, and as local communities, we need to start pushing back. We need to build a coalition of cities because we're not the only city that's not going to be able to come up with this number. One of my concerns with Newport Beach is every time we look at building affordable housing, it suddenly turns into a high-rise and a multi-million-dollar condo, because we've tried this before. So I feel like we need to start locally, we need to build a coalition, we need to fight back against these numbers. There's really no place unless we build out the Back Bay and start taking down medical buildings that we can build some affordable housing, which doesn't seem reasonable. And Manhattan Beach, Santa Monica, all these beach cities, Huntington Beach, we all have the same issues. And just because they make dictates from Dictator Newsom in Sacramento doesn't mean we can't continue to fight. I think we need to come up with a plan, but we also have to fight.
Thank you. Eric Whitehead.
Yes, you know, the quality of life in Newport Beach is affected by the RENA numbers. The city has identified a general plan steering committee that has 3 members, and then their task is to formulate a plan that will incorporate all of the citizens to then sit on that general plan to study it and then to send it to the voters. So we've got the potential for up to 30 members of our citizens in different areas. So, you know, it would be at all of the different levels that we've got. We've got nonprofits that are representative. We've got, you know, city leaders. We've got different, and that's the benefit of Newport Beach, is we have a highly educated and financially well-to-do populace. So if they're educated, they're going to talk to us on the council, and if we don't listen, they're going to financially back our opponents and kick us off. So, you know, we have a citizenry that cares and that pays attention and that listens. So, you know, as far as specifically, the airport area is where the city's identified that most of the housing goes. But we can't just have a bunch of big box apartments scattered throughout that area, because it's going to be overburdened. There's not going to be any services. We have to look out for services. That they're going to have grocery stores, they're going to have dry cleaners, they're going to have gas stations. Well, maybe not gas stations after Newsom has his way and gets rid of gas-powered cars, but they're going to need services in that area. We can't just put a bunch of housing in there and then expect those people to then go to our established communities and then find those services. So we have to be smart with it, and we have to master plan specific areas that we're incorporating into our housing.
Great. We're going to go the other way. Back to Jim Mosher.
I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but this coming Tuesday, our city council is going to be asked to adopt a new housing element that incorporates these 4,845 units and more. And presumably they are going to adopt it because they feel they're forced to adopt it. But in answer to what I believe was the question, I don't think that should force us to change our vision. We should not have the tail wagging the dog. And I would note, having glanced through the staff report for Tuesday's meeting, it's being presented as if it was a result of great community outreach. I would suggest it is not the result of great community outreach. It is actually written by our city staff in consultation with the state. Sometimes the state ordering our city staff to write it a certain way. And I realize this is not a matter to joke about. I don't know how many of you went to those community workshops where we were asked to put Legos on a map to show where we thought the housing should go. At those meetings, I had a suggestion, which apparently did not go very far with our city staff. I too was looking at the airport area, but my idea was we should annex the airport. But that would give us 500 acres to work with. And I suggested putting all my Legos on the airport because it's too much. And it would solve 2 problems at once.
Okay. Now we're going to move over to District 6, Lauren Kleiman.
So, I'm not sure if any of you are aware of just how many laws Sacramento has actually enacted related to housing. It's 80 new laws in the last 7 years, many of which are things that cannot be circumvented even by your HOA restrictions. So this is all coming at us, you know, fast and furiously. City is doing its best to digest it. We have come up with the best laid plan, which is this flexible zoning overlay that allows us to have property owners designate certain areas for development, but also includes caps so that no particular area gets overburdened, and then of course the resources and infrastructure also don't get overburdened. But there's so much more work to be done, and of course there's also a lot of conflict. The state wants housing, but we also have Coastal Commission, and we also have CEQA. And I think there's been over 50,000 lots in the last couple of years that have been challenged over CEQA reasons. And so it's not just easy for the state to say this is what you need to do and go ahead and do it. We know our city best, and we have to push back. And we also have our green light measure. There's a case in Encinitas where Encinitas actually was suing and hoping that the court was going to give them the right to oppose what the voters had already put in place. That is not our position in this city. We do need to stand behind green light.
Thank you. Joy Brenner.
Thank you. When we got this order from the state, like 2 years ago, it was new to all of us. Our last arena allotment had been 5, that we needed to plan for 5 units. This came down with 4,800 plus. The biggest problem is that half of them have to be affordable. Building market rate housing is easy for us. We don't have any problem with that. It's when we have to build affordable units that we get into trouble. There's something called an inclusionary rate, which means what percentage of your project is going to be affordable and what percentage is going to be market rate. In the past, we have actually let our inclusionary rate expire and didn't even have one. Now we have a 30% rate out by the airport, and we're told by developers who work out there that they can build successful projects with a 30% affordable rate. Now that's much better than the 5 to 15 rate that we talk about a lot of times at City Council, but even at 30%, we're going to have a lot more units in our city that we're planning for than we would like to have. When it comes to fighting back, believe me, we look at every opportunity to fight back, and there's a group called Our Neighborhood Voices that I meet with on Zoom calls almost every Saturday. We're looking at every possible way that we can fight this and that we can make sure that our general plan is the law of the land in Newport and not the state's laws, but it's not easy.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to a question, again a 90-second answer, on the John Wayne Airport. What do you think is the biggest John Wayne Airport related issue that impacts Newport Beach residents' quality of life, and how should the city of Newport Beach address it? And we're going to start with Eric Wygant.
90 seconds on something that the FAA controls 100% of on most of these aspects we deal with. Look, it's important to have a conversation with our members of Congress, and it doesn't relate specifically to our member of Congress. There's a whole host of them, so I think having good representation that knows a little bit more detail will be helpful for us to communicate when our next settlement agreement comes up. I had the benefit of working with then Supervisor Bates, and when we dealt with the settlement agreement last. So, ensuring that our curfew is in place. I mean, there's only so many airports in the United States of America that have what we have as far as a curfew. So we're really lucky in that sense. Otherwise, this could be a 24-hour operation, which we get to at least have from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I think ensuring that the curfew and then the million annual passengers, the MAP, making sure that that's capped at the levels that we're seemingly at today. Now the last settlement agreement increased that, and we have to be mindful of those changes coming through. But I do have some experience working with a lot of the folks that are at these levels that have these discussions. And I think that Supervisor Foley has done a good job working with ideas that the City Council had put forth, dealing with rewarding those who respect at the general aviation, the private planes, and their hours that they take off and land, and being respectful to us, we can reward them for being good stewards and good neighbors.
Okay, next we're going to go to Jim Mosher.
Thank you, Tom. The biggest John Wayne Airport issue is obviously aircraft noise, which is a combination of the number of planes and how loud the planes are. In order to keep the noise level controllable, obviously, making sure that we do not lose ground on the settlement agreement is important. I would point out, however, that the curfew is actually predates the settlement agreement and is a separate issue. The County Board of Supervisors enacted that back in the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken. And what the settlement agreement does is it guarantees they won't repeal it until 2035, and I think it will continue after that. The problem is, though, that the small GA airplanes, including jets, can take off at reduced noise levels during those curfew hours, and we need to be sure that the number of those does not increase. And there are two current issues that are closely related to that. One is we do not want the airport to establish a customs office for GA planes, which would encourage them to come in late at night from foreign destinations. Currently, the GA jets are mostly domestic and don't, fortunately, come in during those hours. And the second, there's an issue about what the definition of small airplanes is that needs to be corrected in the so-called General Aviation Improvement Program. And I'm running out of time, but I will answer this on my website. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, let's move over to District 6. Oh, I'm sorry, Amy.
That's okay.
Amy Peters. You're right, I do have that here. Amy Peters.
I'm still here. So, yes, noise and soot. I mean, we live right under the pathway of the airport. I live really near Jim, and I learned about these general aviation flights when they started taking off over my house instead of over the Back Bay, very low in their Costa Mesa takeoff. So we really need to make sure we continue these relationships with the county, but it's a big cash cow for our county, so they don't want to give up those funds. And when it became an issue about whether it was going to be an international airport, we all got together and fought back. And that's what I continue to see is the path forward, is us joining together as neighbors and communities, because none of the cities on the other side of the airport want it to be an international airport either. I mean, they just closed down Santa Monica Airport. So there is a way forward with these small airports. We can encourage them to send airplanes to the larger airports. They've cut back at Long Beach. So there are other options. We have to continue these relationships and make sure the curfew stays in place, because I already wake up at 7 a.m. every morning if I happen to have overslept when the airplanes take off. And I don't want it to be any earlier than that or later than 11 o'clock, because, you know, there's other things to do at 11. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. We'll jump over to District 6, Joy Brenner.
We could all talk about what we want and what we don't want at the airport, and most of us would like to have it moved somewhere else, which would be our first priority, but we can't do that. We tried that before, and as a matter of fact, the Team Newport consultant, political consultant, was the person who was responsible for helping us to get the airport moved to El Toro, and we failed at that miserably. So our goal now, I keep saying this almost every time, that everything that we do at City Hall is dependent upon relationships. It depends on the relationships that we have with our higher level electeds. Are we sending those people who are best able to elicit some compromise and some collaboration from other people in order to help them understand how this is a quality life issue for us, but how we could also be beneficial to them? It's all about them wanting to work with us. And if they see Newport Beach as just that rich, entitled area that everyone really doesn't care if they fly over, it's not helpful for us. So it is really important that we build relationships and that we send representatives at all levels that are best able to work with other people. That is critical. And the other thing is we have to work with the cities surrounding us, because if they see something's better for them and not better for us, they're going to go with what's better for them. So we have to have relationships with all of them.
Thank you. Lori Kleinman.
So I think we've heard pretty much all of the issues up here. Obviously, our settlement agreement is first and foremost. It is one of a kind. It's the only one like it, and it expires the next term at 2030. If we don't start laying the groundwork today to make sure that that extension happens, we are going to find ourselves in a very unfortunate scenario. Secondarily, as I think Mr. Mosher mentioned, the things that are going on with the improvement plan at the airport will also impact us. We have loss of some of the smaller aircraft, which makes room for more of the bigger jets, and some of those jets have engines that are just as loud or almost as loud as some of the commercial flights, and as we know, those fly 24 hours a day. So the work that I did with getting the airlines to the table is the same thing that hopefully the Fly Quieter program is going to do with the GA operators. Obviously, we have a carrot and a stick. In this case, we've got to work that carrot and try to incentivize both the airlines and those operators at the FBOs to be the best neighbors as possible that they can be to us. Relationships, as Joy said, that's going to be key in just holding the line and continuing to try to protect our city.
Thank you. I'm going to go all the way down to District 1 with Tom Miller.
I think we should acknowledge our new airport director, Charlene Reynolds. I've listened to her speak at 2 events now, and she's on our side. It was refreshing to hear her speak and talk about her she will not support an expansion of our runway. She will not support any increasing of the footprint of the airport. The key to our success on council is to play nice and get people on our side, and I think she's on our side. I want to also shout out to Dennis here. Dennis is a local airport expert, and I've sat through classes that Dennis has put me through to educate me. And there's so many things that I wasn't aware of, such as there's 9 monitoring systems throughout the city of Newport that track violators. And you could literally go online and you could pinpoint an airline that violated the airport settlement agreement, which at this point is very, very critical for us. And the most important part of that settlement agreement is the curfew. We're one of 3 airports in the country that has a curfew, and that curfew expires in 2035. The new airport settlement agreement expires in 2030, so the negotiations are going to start pretty soon, about 2025. One thing I have on my side is time. I'm retired, and I'm giving my commitment to sit down with airlines and work with them and play nice and prove to them that Newport isn't a bunch of entitled rich people looking to better ourselves. So I'm looking forward to really working towards improving our quality of life when it comes to the airport.
Thank you. Joe Stapleton?
I want to start by applauding SPON and all that they've done to protect our quality of life. When we talk about airport traffic, we're truly blessed to live in a community like Newport Beach, and it's not by mistake. And I look at Sue Dvorak, I look at Keith Curry's on the airport working group. We are so blessed to have experts in these fields that have been studying this for a very, very long time. So to me, there's no doubt protecting the settlement agreement, the passenger count, the curfew, the noise, absolutely. And above all else, runway extension. We have to do all we can to make sure that that runway is never extended to get bigger jets in here. But continue to work with the general aviation, with the smaller jets, with technology, and continue to be a partner in a region like Orange County. So I just want to thank SPON and all the residents that do all they do for our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the city surplus. The city of Newport Beach currently has an additional $15 million surplus. How do you think this surplus should be allocated? And we're going to start with Lauren Kleiman.
Yeah, so we are fortunate that we have such a healthy, robust budget here in Newport Beach. Obviously, we can't take that for granted. And one of our biggest expenditures, of course, is personnel, most of which is for our police and fire. Of course, the top priority, utmost importance to the city. So for me, my go-to answer is always going to be pay down our unfunded pension liability and continue to maintain our healthy reserve going forward.
Thank you. Joy Brenner.
I think it's really important to understand that we pay down our pension liability about $20 million more than we have to every year. And we're doing everything we can to get that pension liability lowered. But this money is different money. This is money that came out of the recovery plan and a variety of places. And the most important thing now is that we get community input on how we spend that money, because it's not our money. And it's easy for us to come up with plans, grandiose plans of things that we might want to do. But it's really important that we tell them how we want them to spend our money. And that doesn't always happen at City Council. There's been a lot of ignoring what the public has to say in recent years. And for instance, there's now a plan to, ahead of schedule, rebuild the piers down on the peninsula. Well, if that's what the community as a whole wants to do with that money, then I'm fine with that, but I'm not, part of our council is promoting it now. And I'm not willing to do that until we've had community meetings and really talked. Most important is crime and protection of our quality of life. I couldn't even get 2 additional police officers hired in 2019. They fought back. Diane and Brad and I wanted just 2 additional officers. They finally gave us 1. I think hiring additional police officers is probably important.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into the next part, which is going to be 1-minute responses. So we've given you the opportunity to kind of go over. Now we're going to tighten it up a little. Oh my gosh. I am sorry. I did this yesterday. I got it perfect. I'm sorry. I'm ready to move forward though. How about you? Okay, let's go to Tom Miller. Tom, we have a $15 million surplus. How would you spend it?
Well, I've knocked on about 2,000 doors to date, and I have 10,000 more to go. And the number one issue with our local residents is public safety. And you can't put a price on public safety. I think we have an outstanding police department, but our residents feel that we're under-enforced and under-policed. And I think while based on a city mandated part of our charter, 50% of surplus has to be sent on city improved projects, which currently we have 103 million approved, which is incredible, which keeps our city beautiful and clean. However, public safety is number 1 on my list of priorities, and I think that once again, to Joy's point, we put it to the public, we get input from the public and let them decide. Then we sit down with Chief Lewis and ask him what his needs are so we can fulfill his needs, not only with the proper number of additional police officers, but the equipment that they need to properly enforce and protect our city.
Thank you very much. Joe Stapleton.
I'm offended, Tom. You want to skip finance, my favorite subject. I've been serving at the pleasure of City Council for 6 years. I've been working on the Finance Committee, one of 4 residents out of 85,000 residents being entrusted with your money that you guys are putting away in property taxes. We get $131 million a year in property taxes alone. We get $45 million a year in sales tax, and we get $25 million a year from TOT or hotel bed tax here in a city like Newport Beach. It's incredible what we're able to do with $265 million this year alone in total revenue. We came out of a pandemic with a $31 million surplus. That did not happen by mistake. It's because of incredibly strong leadership and fiscal responsibility of the current council and the finance committee to continue to entrust your funds. I swim in this pool every week. I would love to have a facility on the west side of Newport Beach where I could go swimming, but continue to invest in the capital improvement projects is going to be what this money is going to be used for sure.
Thank you. Let's move over to District 3, Amy Peters.
I agree, it's not our $15 million to spend, the City Council. It is our community's $15 million to decide what we feel is the most important. As a constituent, one of the things I feel is the most important, and I have 1 vote and 1 voice, is crime. I've talked about this before. I was four thieves tried to steal my catalytic converter from my driveway. Thankfully, I was able to scare them off, and calling 911, our police officers were there immediately. These are roving gangs. If they had more support and more officers on the street, I feel like these things wouldn't happen. Presence is a deterrent, just as we need more protection in our schools. Our schools are our most precious thing in our communities. I've raised 3 kids, and I can't imagine something happening in our schools, and our SRO officers are stretched pretty thin. They have a lot of issues to deal with in our schools, and hopefully they will be able to be up to the task. But I feel like having more of those would be a benefit to our community. But it is up to the voters and our constituents, so we should be asking every community member where they think we should spend the money.
Thank you. Eric Whitehan.
Yeah, $15 million goes by pretty fast in government sense, so that money will be eaten up pretty quickly. Any type of idea that any of us come with, but crime and public safety are key components that we are monitoring and understanding changing times. I feel like a lot of criminals are coming down from other parts of the state, other parts of the county, other parts of the region to come to Newport Beach, and so we have to pay attention to that. But I agree with most of what everyone said. As far as paying down our pension liabilities, wait till CalPERS understands what we're doing and we almost have it paid off. They're going to come around and say, oh, we're going to change the rules. And then the rules are at their disposal, and then everything that we've put all this money into could potentially change. So, I love the idea of what our councils have done. I think all of the councils agree that we need to pay down that unfunded pension liability. It will linger with us in perpetuity forever if we don't address it. So they're smart to address it, but we always have to be cognizant that CalPERS, they will change the rules anytime that they want, and we could be putting all this money into something that essentially could change. So I think asking our community where to spend that money, heck, just give it right back to the constituents. They could all use 15 million divided by the amount of population. So let's have these discussions and let it be open.
Thank you. Jim Mosher.
Thank you, Tom. First, I would point out that the idea of Newport Beach ending the year with a budget surplus is not an anomaly, it's not new. Newport Beach ends the year with a surplus almost every year. And the reason it does that is a surplus is somewhat of an illusion, because any agency can achieve a surplus simply by purposely underestimating the amount of revenue they expect to come in and overestimating the amount of expense, and then they're happily surprised at the end of the year. It's good that we're happily surprised, and it's also good that all of the candidates up here think that how that money, the public's money, should be spent is the public's decision. I certainly agree with that, but I also recognize it's very difficult to know what the public wants. We have a very small part of the public here today, and I really do not know what all those people at the 10,000 doors want. And I would just point out, in the not too distant past, I believe when Keith Curry was mayor, our city staff took it upon themselves to send out surveys periodically to the public. We got mail letters and asked what our priorities were. That has not been happening for the last 5, 6, 8 years, as far as I can recall. And I really think that's a practice that we should reinstate so that everybody in Newport Beach, not just those who come to the meeting, get a chance to provide their input. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, take a deep breath. Everybody's been heard from at this point on all those issues. Now we're going to move into 1-minute responses. And each person will tighten it up a little. We'll get through these. The first one is going to have to do with police enforcement. We've all been kind of talking about that. If you're on Nextdoor, you know that Newport Beach residents have been complaining recently about an uptick in crime. Catalytic converter thefts, front porch package thefts, smash and grab purse thieves, etc. It won't be your job as a city council person because the police chief doesn't report directly to you. But if you could sit down with our Newport Beach Police Chief John Lewis, what would you suggest doing differently to help make Newport Beach a safer place to live? And we're going to start with Joe Stapleton.
Well, as the first candidate out of everybody up here to be endorsed by our Newport Beach Police Department, I take great pride in supporting our first responders. I support them, and that's why they support me. We didn't defund our police when everything was going on. We continue to invest and strengthen our first responders. I took it upon myself to go feed the cops. I took our Newport Beach Foundation, grabbed Ruby's truck, we took burgers and shakes and fed our cops to show them how much we cared about them. This stuff matters. It's also a problem in Sacramento. We got to give the tools and resources to Chief Lewis to do his job. But I'm not going to pretend to know everything about policing. We're going to continue to recruit and retain and hire the best people for those positions to give them the tools and techniques they need to be successful. My neighbor's house on the west side was broken into by a transient. They were there for 3 days. They got arrested, they went to jail. They came back out the same day, catch and release, and where did they go? Right back to my neighbor's house, broken again. So it's not only a problem in Newport Beach, it's Sacramento policies, these catch and release policies. So I'm all about supporting our first responders, and I think everyone up here will say the same thing.
Tom Miller?
Yeah, the defund police movement is probably the most, second to slavery, the most disgraceful in our nation's history. I think we, as I mentioned earlier, I think we have an unbelievable police department. John and Chief Lewis does an amazing job. However, we're down 8 officers since 2008. And since 2008, our community has grown. So we're expecting more out of our current officers. They're going out on stress leave, they're working excessive overtime, they're having to commute 2 hours to work. I'm very much in support of increasing our police department. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be in the trenches. I'm going to do regular police ride-alongs with our officers to see what they're experiencing. I live on the boardwalk, the peninsula. That's Newport Beach chaos right there. And I am encouraging more enforcement. I'm hearing it from my neighbors and my constituents that enforcement is #1 priority for them. And once again, I think that we can achieve that through having a national recruiting campaign to bring in the best officers in the country, as the state of Florida has been doing for the last 6 months.
Thank you. Eric Wyman, we'll get that mic down to you.
Yeah, policing has changed over the years. Sacramento policies, as Joe had mentioned, make it difficult for officers to do their jobs. There's laws coming out from the state that make police officers have to respond differently when a threat is upon them. If you're an officer and somebody pulls a gun on you, you should be able to pull your gun out right away and do your job. But Sacramento has changed that, and you have to now think and run through a scenario. Is that gun loaded? Is it a fake gun? Is it, whatever scenario there is. So these officers are put under a lot of stress. And we have retention issues, we have hiring issues. I mean, I could go on for days, but my mom and dad, they met at Newport Beach Police Department, and my mom taught Chief Lewis how to write a parking ticket. So I have Chief Lewis's ear since I was, a certain age. So, but my mom attends retiree meetings every month, and the discussion that the police have is how things have changed. They see them more as garbage men, picking up the trash and responding in a different way than they did when they had the ability to act as police officers. So up there in Sacramento, they're causing us trouble.
Jim Mosher.
Thank you again. Like Joe, I do not pretend to be an expert on policing. And as Tom Johnson indicated in his question, it's purely hypothetical. Because as I would like to emphasize, when you elect people to the city council, you're not electing a mini city manager. The city council people individually have no power any different than you have over how the city is run. The city council acts only collectively at the city council meetings to set policy for how the professional staff will operate. So in answer to this question, if there is a problem, it's the responsibility of the council members to seek advice on how the policies that they set are failing, and if they can be corrected, to correct them. And so that is a very evasive answer, but that is my answer to this question.
Amy Peters.
Thank you, Tom. I think if I sat down with him, I would say, how can the community support the police officers and our law enforcement and first responders? One of the things the principal of my children's school did was he started a text-to-tip line. I feel like everyone is on Nextdoor so much because they don't feel like their voices are being heard. And if they could have a line that they could have a direct contact with our police department and tell them what they're experiencing, then I feel like they wouldn't be complaining on Nextdoor so much. But complaining is useful because it is happening. Like I said, I confronted 4 thieves in my driveway at 4 a.m. in the morning. Well, that was the second time they had tried. So I think we need neighborhood watch programs, which I'm joining in my neighborhood, and that's what I would suggest, is how can we help you, and possibly a text-to-tip line would be very helpful.
Thank you. Joy Brenner.
Well, I am fortunate enough to be able to sit down with Chief Lewis and talk to him about these things, and I've been talking to him about these things for 4 years. We even from the council have said we want more enforcement. The entire council said that in open session at a meeting. We want more enforcement. And then we follow up with meetings with the city manager and with the police chief. But the interesting thing is that sometimes when policemen are out there on duty and they're talking to citizens, they will say, call your city councilman. Well, I said the last time, they don't give me a badge and a gun when I got this job. So it's really important to know that we can do everything we can do, but short of firing the city manager, who could fire the police chief, we don't have as much power in this regard as we would like to have. I would love to be able to solve this problem, but it, once again, takes relationships, it takes a unified council, and it takes us all working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Kleiman.
So again, I'm kind of the end of the line here. We've heard pretty much all of the issues. It's not a simple answer. It's very complex in that, as we've heard, Sacramento has all these policies. We have the decriminalization of a number of things that used to be considered crimes that can no longer be enforced. And we also have a limited amount of resources, and our officers are incredible. We have the best of the best here in Newport Beach, but that also means that we are limited in our recruitment. We have open positions in our budget. However, we have an inability to fill those positions. It's not as simple as just posting the position and hiring. We want the best with the customer service attitude. And the other part of that is that their attention is being taken away from fighting crime because they have to address homelessness. And our numbers are up 50% when Costa Mesa, Laguna Beach, and Huntington Beach are down 20, 60, and 35%.
Thank you. Okay. The next question has to do with quality of life versus tourism. Some residents think that the city prioritizes tourism at the expense of residents' quality of life. What should be done to ensure that the city maintains a balance between tourism and residents' quality of life? And I'm going to start with Jim Mosher.
Yes, I am one of those people who has been raising this question for some time, and I probably offended Tom when he was the chair of Visit Newport Beach. But I think first of all, I personally, as a resident of Newport Beach, this may seem radical, I do not see the advantage of promoting tourism to me personally. And I don't know how many other people in Newport Beach feel that way, but that's certainly how I feel. So I've always questioned why the city is collecting money and supporting our organization we call Visit Newport Beach to promote our city as a tourist destination, encourage traffic to the airport, many things that I think have a negative effect on me. So I would change the balance by letting that organization go back to a private volunteer organization, which is what it was in the 1980s before the cities began subsidizing. I would remove the subsidy. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy Peters?
Well, we live in an area where people want to come and visit. I agree with Jim, there's a lot of times too many people here, and you get on the peninsula and there's no way out. You steal a car and drive down the 55 and end up on Balboa Avenue and you get arrested. I'm not sure how to solve this problem because we live in this amazing place that people do want to come to in the summer. Traffic is always an issue, so I'm not sure how to solve build less hotels. I don't think we can build very many more hotels. There's a couple going up in Fashion Island, and we have a lot of foreign dignitaries that like to come to our city. So it's one of those things, I'm not sure how a city council member can solve that problem.
Thank you. Eric Whiteman?
Yeah, it definitely is a balance. Visit Newport had an op-ed, I think, in Stu News that talked about our first candidates forum, and we were all, we're not going to build an airport any further than it is, and we're pretty critical, which I think we all are. But they raised some arguments that said that a significant amount of our revenue for our city is generated from tourism. So we need those dollars to help pay for police officers and pay for the things that we're talking about here and having reserves in our budget. So we have to have a delicate balance. I lived on the peninsula for 10 years. It's a way of life. Joe probably knows more than, and Tom lives on 18th Street. You kind of just accept that on Sunday you're not going anywhere and your groceries need to have been purchased and you get on your bike to go around town. So, if you live down there, you kind of expect what you're going to expect. But our summer population is 100,000+ people. We have 20 to 100,000 tourists that visit our city every day. We need to be understanding that a lot of the revenue generated from their service or their purchases go to benefit a lot of things that we take for granted in our city.
Thank you. We're going to come down here to Lauren Kleinman.
Thank you. So, yes, when you have world-class amenities like our incredible harbor and our beautiful beaches, we have Fashion Island, we have Pelican Hill, people are going to want to come here. We are fortunate that we live here, and of course we deserve first and foremost consideration, and it is a balance. And we do have to consider that the transfer occupancy tax, the sales tax that's generated from this economic engine is what also supports the quality of life that we enjoy here. So those are things that are just part of living in an incredible place like Newport Beach. But I know that even, for example, our harbor policy, it states that our residents' needs come first, and so that is a policy that we should be enforcing overall throughout the city, and visitors and others should come second.
Thank you. Joy Brenner?
This is a really interesting topic, and I've talked with Gary Sherwin many times. Gary is the head of Visit Newport Beach. Everybody wants to come to Newport, and we've got the high-paying visitors that Gary works with, and we've got the homeless that want to come to Newport Beach as well. It's like everybody wants to be here, and we understand that because we want to be here. But when I work with Gary Sherwin, I talk to him about not killing the goose that laid the golden egg, that it's really important for us to maintain quality of life in Newport Beach so that when those visitors come here, they see happy residents, they see a beautiful place, they see it well maintained, they see crime is low. It's really important. So we may need to readjust the money that is spent in the TOT and use it in some other ways to benefit them, but also benefit us. And he's been very good about working with community organizations to try to help them with the money that he raises as well. Our CDM Chamber, our CDM Residents Association, all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to the far end now. We're going to go down to, drum roll please, Tom Miller.
So $133 million is coming in this year's budget for property tax. It's expensive to live here. And my wife and I consider it an honor and a privilege to be living in this incredible city. So that being said, we need to prioritize it. It's a three-step priority. Number one, residents. We need to white glove treatment for our residents. Number two is to take care of our small businesses and give them the same respect and white glove treatment. And then three is tourism. We're a tourist destination. I live on the boardwalk. Joy's district and my district promotes about 80% of the tourism, and people come from around the world to visit our city. It's up to us to provide a good white glove experience for them because it's never going to go away. But it's still a priority to take care of our residents because it's very expensive to live here, and it's a blessing and an honor to have what we have in this incredible city.
Thank you. Joe Stapleton.
I've got a friend who's in real estate, and one of my favorite things she says is live where others vacation. And we do that just right here in Newport Beach. We get 8 million visitors a year, and Eric is right, there's no bigger impact in District 1. And Eric, I am here on a Sunday, so I did get off the peninsula. I love when you go from east side to west side. People on the east side are like, oh my God, how do you live on the west side? Well, we figured it out. We're doing okay. We love the city like all of us do here, but I've been serving on the board of the Newport Beach Company, which was the umbrella company for Visit Newport. And what I love more than anything that's going on in the city right now is we have local residents investing in projects for hospitality. Lido House, Bob Olson, Eagle 4 with what's going on with Avea, Marriott. I mean, these are people that live in the city. I don't think they want to ruin the quality of life in Newport Beach. And watching SPON partner with developers on making sure that we maintain that quality of life is something I'm really passionate about and look forward to continuing to see work. And like we all said, this is 10% of our budget, $25 million a year. So like everyone else up here, it's all about balance.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, I'm gonna hit one more question, then we're gonna go, I just got a quick other thing, and then we're gonna go to closing arguments. I do wanna say that we had a number of other questions to, we could keep you here all night. We'd love to talk about, Green Line, we'd love to talk more about homelessness and other things. California Coastal Commission, we just don't have time for it all, or you'd all be asleep. So I'm gonna ask one more question, but I encourage you to stick around afterwards. I would ask the candidates, if you could, to maybe stick around for a few minutes. If you don't have to rush off, maybe answer anybody's questions. Okay, the final question is, before we get to the lightning round, is if you are elected to the City Council, do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process? And if so, how will you involve the residents? The mic's down at the far end. Joe, let's just start with you and roll this way.
What's the question? How are we going to involve residents?
How would you involve residents in helping you to make decisions?
God, you don't have to look any further than the Newport Beach Foundation. I started an organization that is all about getting the next generation engaged in the community. When I got involved in the city in 2006, 2007, 2008, there was nobody under 40 years old. We started the Newport Beach Foundation. We created the Distinguished Citizen Program to give the next generation a voice. I want to be part of the generation that passes the baton down. The Marion Burgesses, the Denny O'Neills, the Gene Watts, those individuals that are legacies in our city, preserving that legacy. I want to be part of that, passing that baton down. We have the Distinguished Citizen Program. We graduated 160 people through 4-week programs. Of the 160 people, 17 of them have been appointed to a board, commission, or committee in the city of Newport Beach. To me, that's the legacy. Getting the next generation engaged, and that's my mission in life for sure.
Thank you. Tom Miller.
Yeah, this is easy for me. Being retired, I have all the time in the world, and I'm up for the challenge. One thing that Diane Dixon did, who's endorsed me, is that she's conducted these town hall meetings, and I've attended most of them over the last 2 years. I'm very impressed with that approach. I'm going to continue the town hall meetings once I'm on City Council. Additionally, at Marina Park, I'm going to have an 8-hour day, once a week, open door policy. I ran my organization as an open door policy where an employee could come in at any time and share their frustrations, their ideas, whatever they had on their mind. I'm going to do the same for my constituents. I'm not doing this for power or influence or control. I literally have dropped the mic in this incredible life I live. It's now my opportunity to be your mouthpiece, your voice. And I will listen, and I will be available, and I will give back to you. That I can promise you. That I can control, and that I'm going to fulfill my promise.
Thank you. Jim Mosher.
Thank you, Tom. First of all, if the council members are doing their job well, I don't think everybody should feel they have an obligation to be closely involved in what the council is doing. They should be able to believe the council is working in their interest without that involvement. But for those who do want to be involved, like those who are here today, I have been disturbed that our city council meetings have been becoming less and less welcoming to the public over the years that I've been watching. To correct that, I would do a number of things. I would move the council meetings back to an evening hour. They used to be held at 7 o'clock, so we added a predictable hour. They now start at 4 in the afternoon, and no one has any idea when the regular meeting is going to happen. I would restore the opportunity of the public to comment for 5 minutes instead of the 3 that they have now. I would want better reporting of what the city council is doing in its closed sessions that are becoming increasingly opaque to us, and many other things. Thank you.
Amy Peters. Amy Peters.
Yes, I agree. We need more transparency in our local government, and having town hall meetings or coffee meetings. We have the best coffee shops in Newport Beach. Kian is in my area. My daughter went to school with Kian. They're a local family, and they used to, Dietrich's Coffee is where I went to in high school, and when my kids were in high school, they went to Kian. So I'd love to have coffee meetings. I love to text. But as Jim just said, we should have meetings that are more accessible, easier for our constituents to attend, and they should speak plainly. Our city council members should be a transparency for the good going on in our community. They shouldn't feel like they need to hide from us what they're doing behind closed doors. I understand it's complicated running a city like this, but it's also not complicated. When we simplify things and involve the community and talk to people about what we're doing face to face, we get a lot more done.
Thank you. Eric Whitehead?
Yeah, on the Planning Commission, I have a pretty good record of working with everyone. I listen, I find consensus, and I have actually a really good, I feel, and not up here to brag much, but I feel like I've done a really good job listening and going out to the community and hearing both sides of the issue when an item comes before us. I mentioned earlier, I work for a state senator, and I've worked over the years helping constituents navigate government. No matter what, as much as we want to simplify government, it is challenging and confusing, and the average layman does not always understand. So I have a relationship that I can bring to the table by having worked with tens of thousands probably of constituents over the years, bringing in results and delivering some type of solution. The EDD was such a big issue the last several years with the pandemic, and I spent so much time working to navigate that for residents down in South Orange County, but I understand how government works at a local level, and I feel that I am very competent in working with the constituents of not just District 3, but in the entire city.
Thank you. Joy Brenner?
The cornerstone of my campaign 4 years ago was restoring citizen-driven government to Newport Beach. That has been how I have worked in our community for over 50 years. I was a founder of the Corona del Mar Residents Association along with our city council member at that time. That organization is still thriving. They meet once a week. We also have governmental relations meetings with our CDM Chamber of Commerce. We have so many meetings in Corona del Mar. I sat and listed them one day, and it's amazing, and anybody can come to those. That's critical. We have to make sure that we tell them what we want. But the other critical thing is to have council members who are going to listen to us. It doesn't matter how unified we are, it doesn't matter what we do, unless you've got council members who are going to pay attention to what you say. And that's not what's happening now. There's a bloc that votes together on almost everything, and they do exactly what they want to do, regardless of whether the room is filled with citizens who want something else.
Lauren?
So we have an incredible city staff. I know nothing is perfect, and that includes Newport Beach and our government. However, I mean, Eric and I can both attest to, we just had on the Planning Commission agenda this past week, the general plan circulation element, and I think city staff said there were, 9 public meetings, including different study sessions and different outreach groups that were conducted to get to a point where they were making a recommendation to move forward. I think, again, our staff does a very good job of hearing and offering opportunities to listen to our community and work together. And it's just a very important part of the process. You know, we've got complaints about e-bikes and now fractional ownership, and I constantly am seeing those responses by our staff to offer opportunities to be heard by our elected officials and also by the members of our community groups.
Thank you. Okay, you know what, let's stop passing the mic for this one. We're just gonna go lightning round. I think everybody has a big enough voice where they can just say the answers. There's gonna be some fun things on here and there's going to be some serious things on here. But it's not a sentence, it's just your answer. No adjectives, No adverbs. I didn't learn what they were in school, but we don't want any, okay? We don't want any verbs, okay? City Council requires a significant time commitment. If elected, how many hours per week do you expect to devote to City Council issues? Lauren?
Probably 20.
Probably is too much. No. Joy?
I currently spend over full-time, probably 50 hours a week.
It's a sentence. Eric?
As much as it takes, is that the answer?
Okay. Amy, Peter?
30.
Jim? Minnie?
Whatever it takes.
Joe?
Whatever it takes to get the job done.
Tom?
40 plus.
Okay. Starting at the far end, Tom. Which of the city's committees or commissions would you like to serve on during your term in office? And just pick one and tell me what.
Homeless. Finance.
Jim?
Aviation.
Amy?
Planning.
Eric?
Recovery residents.
Okay. Joy?
Finance.
Lauren?
Almost and aviation.
Okay, you cheated. You got two. Okay. For the record, and we'll start down here with Lauren, go back down the far end. For the record, do you have any personal or professional relationships that could become a conflict of interest to require you to recuse yourself from voting on something while serving as a council member? If so, tell us what it is, otherwise answer no. Property, okay. Eric?
Can you repeat it?
Okay, do you have any conflicts that are going to prevent you from voting on something or standing by on an issue? For example, if I lived or worked on the Bay, I couldn't vote on a Bay issue. Do you have anything that prevents you from voting on something?
No, unless it's a campaign-related, contribution sitting on the plan. It's a very complicated answer, and I can't answer it in that way, but it's possible. I had one last planning commission.
Okay. Amy?
No.
Jim?
Sounds like my home.
Oh, okay. Joe?
Only my home.
Tom?
Same property.
Okay. Next one is pretty easy, and I know you're going to say, well, I can't name one, so I got to name four. I'm asking one. What is your favorite restaurant in Newport Beach, Tom?
Sabatino's.
Very fun.
What?
Very fun. Jim?
My kitchen at home.
Okay. Amy?
I love them all. I don't have a favorite.
Can't answer twice, you have one. Olay.
Okay. Joy? Bungalow? Lauren? Okay. And the last thing, and this is for all of you that have not made up your mind of how you're going to vote yet. This is the one I've been holding for the end. I'm going to start with Lauren. Are you a dog person or a cat person? Dog. Dog.
100% dog.
Dog. Amy?
Both.
Jim?
Neither.
Neither. Jim has a pet buddy. No. Joe?
Anne's best friend's got a good dog.
Okay. Tom? Okay. Thank you. And now, I thought that would be kind of a fun way to just get you laughing or whatever. Yeah, okay, so a couple of people said property or whatever. If you don't know, if there's an issue that comes up that you don't anticipate and it happens to interfere because it's in the vicinity of your house or your business or whatever, it could come up. If they said property, they're not anticipating anything, they're just protecting, saying that if something came up, they would have to recuse themselves. Is that do it?
That's it.
Okay, so now we're going to go to closing statements. And where did the mic get up? Mic gets up here. We're going to start with you, Lauren, and we're going to give you 1 minute. Why should these people vote for Lauren Kleiman?
I know everyone's tired, I'll make it quick. Obviously, Newport is very fortunate to have community groups like SPON and Next Up Newport, so many others. All of you here tonight who are very passionate about our city, about local issues, and make their voices heard. I came here today with the hope that I could earn your respect and acknowledgement that I am a candidate who has dedicated a great deal of my time to our community because of a deeply vested interest in preserving quality of life for my own family and for all of yours. Where I think we are 100% aligned is in our love for this great city, in wanting strong leaders to represent us, and with our desire to take back local control from Sacramento because we know our city best.
Thank you. Joy Brenner.
Starts when I start talking.
Yes.
I just have to say, what I've done for 4 years is the reason that I would like you to return me to my place on the city council. I have worked on homelessness, I have worked on short-term lodging regulation, I have worked on the board and care facilities that are propagating all over our community. Now I'm working on the Newport Beach Housing Trust with some developers and with SPON so that we can try to find a way that we can build full affordable living units that serve perhaps the seniors, that serve teachers, that serve firemen, that serve police. And if we can do that, we can limit the number of housing units overall that we have to plan for in our city, which will make a dramatic influence.
Thank you. Eric Whiteman.
Yeah, I think I can kind of hit the ground running once I take over. So on the role of a council member, because again, everything is regional, and the connections that I have with a lot of our elected officials goes deep, but you have to recognize that all of us, once we're elected, we are on regional boards. So you could be on the sanitation district, you could be on vector control, you could be on the toll roads, you could even be on OCTA if you're liked by your neighboring cities. These are all things that bring resources to our city, and the connections that I feel that I bring to the table can help deliver us financially, and knowing when developments like an airport expansion come to the table, it's having those connections that can push back where we need to push back. So even though that some of our council have disagreements, they're usually lined up 90+% of the time. And I am supported by all 7 council members. I'm the only candidate to have that. And I feel that my connections run deep enough that you go beyond some of the disagreements, but I can work with everyone, and it's proven, and I'm excited to be in this next phase of my life.
Go ahead, Dennis, get that. I know you wanted to. There you go. Okay, Amy Peters.
Well, I've lived here for over 40 years. We have raised all 3 of our kids here and started our business here. Over the last 10 years, we've seen a steady increase in homeless and sober living homes. I think that is one of the main issues facing our city going forward, and we need to fight back. We need to not continue to allow all these sober living homes, because those people end up on the streets. They have an 87% recidivism rate, so 13% are getting sober. What happens to that 87%? They get taken to the curb with their stuff, most of the time their stuff, and then they're set free, and then they're living on our streets. I've seen people defecating in the streets of Newport Beach, in Fashion Island by one of the palm trees. I want to address these issues. I think we can do it. I think it involves mental health, and it is my son's birthday, November 8th. So.
Jim Mosher.
Thank you, Tom. As I said at the beginning, I am running to provide my many fellow citizens who do not feel they need to become personally involved in city government with the citizen oversight that I've seen lacking from our past city councils. And as Tom Johnson said, the hosts of this meeting had a number of questions that did not get answered here today, and I'm sure you have ones that were not asked. So I would like to emphasize that I'm not only the only candidate who for over a decade has attended every council meeting, heard every staff proposal, and every publicly expressed citizen concern, but I also, to the best of my knowledge, am the only candidate who has a website where I promise to answer every question, including those Tom didn't get to, on that website. So I encourage you to visit that, jimmosher.com. You will find the answers for this and all the previous forums there. There might be a little delay on this particular one though, because we have a council meeting coming up on Tuesday.
Hey, Jim, mark this one down. Will the Raiders win the Super Bowl? Okay, Joe, go ahead.
This is so fun. I want to start by thanking Tom Johnson for making this one enjoyable and memorable for sure, and to SPON and Next Up Newport, thank you. But most importantly, thank you to each of you for being here. It's not lost on me that this is local politics, and you in this room are the ones that are part of the fabric of this community. You are the ones that are responsible for helping others figure out and educate what's going on in the issues in Newport Beach. We are so fortunate, and it's not by mistake, that the city of Newport Beach is this utopia amongst California. It's because of incredible leadership, both current and previous city councils, but most importantly, community leaders just like yourself. I am running to preserve the legacy of Newport Beach, and I'm looking forward to continue serving the city that has been so good to me. This is not a responsibility I take lightly. This afternoon, I'm asking for your vote. I look around here, we all share very similar values, okay? So please go to our website, Stapleton for Newport. This is not a vision, this is not a dream, this is a vision I've been living for the last 16 years. So together, we'll keep Newport, Newport. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Miller.
So I have one word to really describe my entire campaign. I'm going to start dancing to that song. And it's unite. The last time our country was united, unfortunately, was 9/11. And it took a tragedy like that. And I can tell you right now, we're a divided country. And while this is a local election, a local campaign, it is my platform, my desire to unite us. I am one person, one voice, just like everybody in this room. I can't do it without you. I tell people, I've had 3 doors slammed in my face as I'm walking. And in my worst day, I couldn't slam a door in somebody's face. That's how divided we are, even locally. I tell people, I'm not going to judge you based on your political party, your sexual preference, or even your religious beliefs. I'm going to treat you as a human being. I'm going to treat you as an American. I'm going to treat you as my neighbor, as you deserve, and I will treat you with respect. But it takes a village, and I need your help. And help me make Newport incredible, even more incredible than it already is. Can't do it without you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I ask you to give our candidates a rousing thank you, I have one thing I'd like to read, and that is SPON has their annual meeting on September 24th from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. They'd like you to join them. The featured speaker will be Charlene Reynolds, the new John Wayne Airport Director. There's going to be coffee, tea, light refreshments served, and it is, I'm skimming through this quick, it's going to be at the Environmental Nature Center. Environmental Nature Center, September 24th, 10 to noon. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming out today. If you read Stu News and you find something you like, thank me. If you find something you don't like, call the editor. Her name is Lana Johnson. Anyway, I want to thank our candidates. You all did a wonderful job. How about a very nice band?